I never found that ferry terminal on any chart, but when I stepped onto the narrow wooden jetty at twilight, the air tasted of brine and damp moss, and I felt an uncanny pull drawing me forward. The boards beneath my boots creaked under a weight that wasn't mine alone, as if the pier exhaled a long-forgotten breath. In the half-light, the ferry's hull loomed like a slumbering leviathan, its dark paint peeling in salt-stained ribbons. A single lantern swung from the wheelhouse, casting a tremulous glow over windows so smeared with sea spray that no shadows stirred behind them. I hesitated, the faint hiss of foghorns somewhere beyond the shore resonating in my chest like a warning. Still, I stepped aboard. The deck gave a soft thud under my palms, and a cold gust carried the scent of wet timbers and something metallic, perhaps the echo of rusted machinery deep within the hull. No welcome voice called out. No crew appeared. Instead, something in the quiet hummed, as though the vessel itself were alive. I traced the railing's grain with my fingertips and shivered at its slick chill. Ahead, a narrow corridor opened into the belly of the ferry, each step beyond the threshold swallowed by darkness. My flashlight beam quivered, revealing rows of worn leather benches stained by years of salt and solitude. A low vibration thrummed through the floors, a heartbeat in slow, deliberate rhythm. I paused, pulse quickening, as the ferry's engines sputtered to life. Soft at first, then steady, though I had seen no one pull any lever. The dock fell away in the lantern light, and with a reluctant groan, the ferry began to drift into the fog. Panic rose in my throat, yet I felt rooted to the spot by something deeper, an instinctive conviction that I had already crossed an invisible threshold. Ahead, the corridor stretched into unlit doorways, each promising a different story. Somewhere in that labyrinth of halls lay the reason I had risked this journey. A name whispered in a dream, a face half-remembered from poems I never wrote. The mist curled around the ferry's prow like fingers, and I realized there was no turning back. The water closed over the jetty behind me, and the rhythm of the engine merged with the beat of my heart, guiding me towards strangers whose silhouettes waited in the gloom. Faces I felt I had seen before and would never forget. The corridor smelled of damp cedar and something older, like the faint copper tang of dried blood. But I reminded myself there was no violence here, only the slow decay of salt and wood. My flashlight's beam trembled across faded cabin numbers, each etched into corroded brass. The engine's heartbeat underfoot had grown louder, more insistent, as though urging me forward. I passed a row of closed doors, their handles matte with rust, and paused at one that bore a handprint, swayed soft, as though pressed by a child's palm. A whisper rose behind me, a syllable I almost understood, then dissolved into the hum of the ferry. Inside the cabin, the air was colder still, so frigid that each breath left a ghost of vapor dancing before me. My boots crunched on scattered debris. Pages from a journal, yellowed and brittle, each word smudged by salt spray. I knelt and lifted one, fingers brushing a line. Remember who waits. A shiver crawled up my spine. Behind me, the door clicked. My heart stuttered. I flicked off the flashlight, plunging the room into a darkness so complete it felt alive. Then a single pinprick of light. The bulb in a corner lamp, sputtering to life with a soft blue glow. The lamp illuminated a portrait on the wall, a woman's face half hidden in shadow, her eyes wide with something I recognized before I could place her. My knees went weak. I knew her smile. I had dreamed of it. Yet her lips were twisted, as if she cried silently. I stood, every muscle taut, and the lamp flickered again, revealing a small table beneath the portrait. On it lay a tarnished pocket watch, its glass cracked, frozen at 3:17. When I touched it, a jolt of cold pain shot through my fingertips, and the whisper returned, clearer this time. You forgot me. A sudden gust of wind slammed the door shut. The lantern swung, casting long, wavering shadows that stretched toward me, like fingers reaching. I yanked at the latch, but it held fast. Panic rose, but beneath it, a steady determination. I needed to know what or who was waiting at 317. I pressed my ear to the door and heard muffled sobs, then silence. And beneath that silence, a soft, deliberate click, as if someone on the other side had wound the watch a single tick further. With trembling resolve, I pressed my shoulder against the wood and let the question consume me. Had I come here to remember a face, or to become someone I no longer was? The door finally gave way with a groan, and I stumbled into a narrow stairwell descending into deeper darkness, the air growing heavier with the tang of oil and decay. Every step echoed on unseen metal girders, a hollow percussion that matched the thump of my heart. Water dripped from overhead pipes, each drop striking the floor with a tiny splash that resonated in the stillness. I pressed forward, the beam of my flashlight slicing through the gloom to reveal a row of numbered portholes, each sealed shut. But through one streaked pane, I caught a flicker of movement, as if someone pressed a hand against the glass and then withdrew it, leaving only a wet smear. A distant hum rose around me, voices blending into a low chant that felt both sorrowful and urgent, speaking words I could almost understand, but never quite. The pocket watch in my pocket grew impossibly heavy, its cracked glass pressing cold against my thigh. At the bottom of the stairs, the corridor opened onto a lifeboat deck, where the empty cradles rocked gently, though no wind stirred. Beneath each cradle, a nameplate glinted. Strangers' names I didn't recognize, until I saw one that froze me in place. My own name. The lantern above sputtered and died, plunging me into a darkness so complete I felt swallowed. Then, just as the whisper returned, clear and insistent, "You belong here," the flashlight flickered back to life, revealing a silvery figure stepping forward from the shadows. The figure advanced with deliberate grace, each step muffled against the wet planks by the soft thud of its bare feet. My flashlight quivered in my hand, casting the silhouette into sharp relief. A woman in a faded sailor's coat, hair plastered to her cheeks by salt spray, eyes hollow as eclipse shadows. The air around her crackled, charged with something ancient, like the moment before lightning split the sky. I swallowed, tasting iron on my tongue and feeling the pocket watch burn against my thigh. She raised a trembling hand, and I saw it for what it was. My mother's ring, glinting on her finger despite the years etched into its silver band. My breath caught. I remembered nights at her knee, her voice soft as moonlight speaking of distant waters, and the brother I never met. Cold slithered down my spine. "You forgot me," she whispered, voice threaded with sorrow and accusation. The words rolled through me like waves, each one pulling me closer to a truth I had buried. Behind us, the ferry's engine sighed deeper, and the portholes rattled, as though the boat itself struggled to contain what lay beneath. I stepped backward, boots splashing in ankle-deep water that seeped from overhead cracks. The water smelled of brine and old leaves, as though the sea had dragged fragments of forest aboard. My mind spun with questions. How could she be here? Why had I allowed her memory to slip into darkness? Her gaze pierced me. "You left me," she said, voice now brittle, as if the years of abandonment had hardened into glass that cut with every syllable. I felt tears sting my eyes, but I fought them down. I had come seeking answers. My heartbeat raced, matching the boat's mechanical pulse. "I'm sorry," I managed, voice unsteady. She tilted her head, and for a moment, the ferry's lantern above flickered, revealing dozens of shadowed faces pressed against the windows, silent witnesses to my confession. The corridor behind her stretched endlessly into deeper gloom, each doorway opening into silent memories I could not yet face. The whisper returned, rising to a crescendo. "Remember!" The word echoed through my skull, and the pocket watch dropped to the deck with a resonant click, its hands spinning in reverse. A wave of vertigo washed over me. I realized then that this journey was not about a forgotten ferry, but about the river of my own lost years, and that I stood at the point of no return. My reflection shimmered in the water at my feet, fractured by ripples. I saw a stranger's face staring back. The man I once was, unscarred by guilt or grief. Then the ripples stilled, and her outstretched hand hovered between us, offering a choice: to reclaim what I had forsaken, or to let it sink forever into the depths. I inhaled, the cold contracting my lungs, and stepped forward, ready to grasp the memory I had abandoned. The deck trembled beneath my boots as I followed her flickering lantern light through the narrowing passage, water sloshing around my ankles with each deliberate step. The air grew thick with the acrid scent of burning oil and ozone, punctuated by the distant clang of pistons deep in the belly of the ship. My mother glided ahead, her figure wavering like a candle flame in the gloom, guiding me toward a heavy steel door embossed with a rusted wheel. My heart pounded against my ribs, each beat echoing the engine's ceaseless pulse. I hesitated, fingertips brushing the cold metal, and inhaled the dank aroma of deep water and decaying rope. Each breath stung at the back of my throat. Then I pressed the wheel, and the door groaned open to reveal the engine room's cavernous maw. Coils of steam hissed from yawning vents. Shafts of pale light from overhead grates caught motes of dust dancing in the air, and the walls glistened with condensation. Amid the labyrinth of gears and pipes, I saw it. An old workbench where a wooden toy boat lay half submerged in a shallow puddle, its paint chipped and dulled by time. My chest tightened. I knelt and lifted the toy, memories rushing back in a flood of anguish and longing. My brother's laughter as we sailed that very boat across the bathtub waves, the promise I made to protect him forever, and then the silence that followed his disappearance. The engine's drone deepened into a low lament, and I realized the ferry itself mourned the souls it carried, my mother's among them. Behind me, she stood silent, her eyes reflecting a sorrow too vast for words. I clutched the toy to my chest, the wood slick and cold, and felt tears blur my vision. A sharp hiss cut through the haze as the hatch at the far end of the room yawed open, revealing a narrow shaft of darkness twisting downward. From its depths rose the soft susurrus of voices, names I had once whispered into the night, promises I had let slip away. The pocket watch in my hand clicked twice, its hands spinning toward midnight. The whisper came again, urgent and fractured. "Bring us home." My grip tightened on the toy and the watch. My goal crystallized with painful clarity. I would open that hatch. With a trembling breath, I set my lantern beside the bench and stepped toward the yawning void. Steam curled around my face like ghostly fingers, the chill of the unknown seeping into my bones. As I reached for the latch, the voices swelled into a chorus of longing, echoes of every lost passenger, every forgotten promise, calling me deeper. My mother's hand found my shoulder, guiding but not restraining. I inhaled the metallic tang of fear, the wet pulse of water at my feet, and turned the hatch's wheel. The barrier gave way with a final, mournful groan, and the void beckoned me into the heart of the ferry's secret. I slid into the narrow shaft and felt the world tilt beneath me, darkness closing in like a velvet shroud, the voices of the forgotten swelling into a single, mournful chorus. My lantern's beam trembled across the slick walls, revealing rivulets of water that glowed faintly with phosphorescent algae. At the bottom lay a shallow pool, its surface glassy and still, reflecting a sky I could not see. I knelt and placed the toy boat upon the water. Its paint peeled away in flakes, drifting like pale petals. The voices hushed, replaced by the soft tick of the pocket watch in my hand, its hands now trembling toward midnight. A shape rose from the pool's mirror. My brother's face, pale and ethereal, eyes wide with longing. I reached toward him, heart hammering with regret and hope. His lips moved soundlessly, and I understood. He waited not for rescue, but for remembrance. With a trembling breath, I whispered his name and lifted him into the lantern's glow. The figure faded into a cascade of light, carrying the echoes of our childhood laughter back into memory's tide. Above me, the hatch creaked open, and I climbed onto the deck as dawn's first light painted the fog in rose and gold. The ferry lay moored at a familiar pier, its engines silent, its passengers gone. In my pocket, the watch lay still at 3:17, and in my hand, the wooden hull of a toy boat felt warm with memory reclaimed. I stepped onto solid ground, no longer chasing ghosts, but carrying them gently within me, transformed by loss and love's enduring echo. If you've sailed with me into the shadows of the past, feel the weight of memories unforgotten, and crave more haunted voyages, like this story, and subscribe to WhisperTales for your nightly escape into anxious calm.